Hey guys, welcome to the video. Salt here. Today I'm going to be going over the brand new bow, the Daikyu Prime. This is actually my second recent video I've done on the Daikyu Prime, and it's because my video yesterday had an incorrect thing on it. It was the arcane, and I actually want to do kind of like a little apology here. So Andy, go ahead and cue the ukulele music for me. All right, so two of our commenters yesterday, they made a comment and they said, I think longbow sharp shot might be better than deadhead. And I tested it. I tested longbow sharp shot versus deadhead, and deadhead was about 34% better than longbow sharp shot. But I had missed a critical part about longbow sharp shot. Longbow sharp shot is multiplicative, but it needs flat damage on the build for it to work multiplicatively, or to activate its multiplicativeness, if that's a word. So once I did that, once I added Serration plus longbow sharp shot, and granted, you can use any kind of flat damage. You can use spectral Serration, you can use a Riven with flat damage, just some kind of flat damage, and longbow sharp shot. All of a sudden, it was doing, funnily enough, 34% more damage than deadhead. So I just wanted to give a apology to those two commenters. It was Valraven and Alpha X36. Unique and interesting things about the Daikyu Prime is its unique trait here, where weak point hits have a plus 250% critical chance. It has an innate 3-meter punch through, and shots produce forced impact procs on hit. So let's go over the mods now. We have primary acuity for plus 350% weak point damage and plus 350% weak point critical chance. Serration for plus 165% damage. Remember, you just need flat damage on the build somewhere, so it doesn't have to be Serration, but it does need to be some form of flat damage. If you can activate the requirement for spectral Serration by being invisible, this could be even better. Or if you had a Riven that had flat damage, that would be even better. Vial acceleration for fire rate. This affects how quickly our bow charges, so this is very important. Hammer shot for critical damage and status chance. Amalgam Daikyu target acquired for plus 75% headshot multiplier. Vital Sense for critical damage. And in the next two slots, we make Blast. So the 60/60 heat thermite rounds and primed cryo rounds for cold. Now, Blast isn't the only thing you need to consider. Gas is also pretty good. It just needs to be an element that has an on-death effect. And it's because the Daikyu Prime is a one-shot type weapon. So you're frequently not going to need to do a follow-up shot. So you want to have that effect happen immediately, or for it to persist on death. Gas persists on death, and Blast happens immediately as soon as the target dies. So I personally prefer Blast over Gas, but Gas is also a completely valid option. In the Exilus slot, there's not really great options here. If I pull up the Exilus mods, something you would normally consider would be Vigilante Supplies, except for a weapon that fires pretty slow, it's not that great. Another thing you might consider, especially on bows, is terminal velocity for projectile speed. The Daikyu Prime actually has a pretty good base projectile speed, so you don't super need this. You could if you want to, if you really want to make it almost hit scan, but you don't really need this. And the one I'm going for is Agile Aim. Again, you don't really need this one either. It's just kind of the one I settled on. But Agile Aim is plus 20% movement speed when aiming. Now, you're going to be aiming pretty much all of the time with the Daikyu Prime, so this is like a 20% movement speed buff. Again, you don't really super need this, so you can even consider leaving the Exilus slot completely open to save capacity. And in the Arcane slot, we're going with Longbow Sharp Shot. This was the mistake I made yesterday. So Longbow Sharp Shot is on a headshot. You gain plus 300% damage on your next shot. And again, this works multiplicatively, but you need to have that flat damage to actually activate it, and that's why we added Serration here. Now, before we end the build explanation here, I just wanted to also go over my considerations for where I put Serration. So if you remember the build from yesterday, I had Galvanized Scope here, which is a 320% critical chance buff. I had that in this slot right here. And so I wanted to see Serration over Galvanized Scope versus Serration over Amalgam Daikyu target acquired. And when I was doing that testing, it came to the same damage output. And so I would rather put this over the scope, which had that conditional where you need to like keep getting headshot kills very frequently. Granted, you're going to do it on the Daikyu Prime anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I mean, you probably could put it over Daikyu Target Acquired and, you know, it wouldn't be too bad and keep scope here. It's just that, you know, one has a conditional, one doesn't. Why not put it over the one that has a conditional? So I put it over scope. The other thing I wanted to test was Serration, was keeping Galvanized Scope and putting Serration over Hammershot. Now, you actually do end up with a higher damage number by doing this. Serration over Hammershot basically increases your damage by about 5 to 10%. I don't even think it's 10%, but it's almost 10%. But here's the thing with putting it over Hammershot. Hammershot also gives you status chance, which really helps the consistency of your blast procs. So I don't think that little tiny increase to raw damage is worth it. I think you're better off keeping Hammershot. You're better off getting those consistent blast procs and leaving Serration either, again, over scope or over Amalgam Daikyu Target Acquired, but you have a choice between putting it over a conditional mod and a non-conditional mod, might as well put it over the conditional. One more thing I wanted to add is that the mod Rifle Elementalist for plus 90% status damage is complete god tier for blast and gas. Both of those elements are extremely more powerful with Rifle Elementalist. So why don't we have it on the build? It's really because we don't have room for it, unfortunately. And I would rather guarantee the one shot so that blast procs rather than to increase the damage of that blast proc. Now, would it be nice to increase that damage? Absolutely. And there is a way to fit Rifle Elementalist, but it requires externals. And if you know me, I don't show my builds with externals, but I still wanted to explain how you could fit Rifle Elementalist. So it comes down to the fire rate mod of Vial Acceleration. There are a lot of ways in the game to get fire rate. There's Warframes that have specific buffs that give fire rate. There's the pet mod, which is probably the easiest way because it's just a mod that goes on your pet and you get 60 fire rate. So if there's any way you can get external fire rate, you can completely dump off Vial Acceleration. You put Rifle Elementalist right over that slot, and now your blast procs are pretty much double damage or close to double damage. Same thing with gas. This is extremely powerful on gas as well. So consider Rifle Elementalist in this slot. If you can fulfill one of those externals, or if you ended up having a Riven that maybe was flat damage plus fire rate, oh, that would be really nice. Then you could get rid of Vial Acceleration and put your Rifle Elementalist there. This is how you build out the new bow, the Daikyu Prime. Again, I wanted to apologize to those 2 commenters who were in fact right yesterday. I assure you though, I did self-flagellate all day yesterday, and I will continue to self-flagellate all day today for penance for my crimes. So now we have a 5-minute gameplay portion coming up, showcasing the Daikyu Prime and its gameplay. And after that, I will go over its final score and ranking and how it did. All right, see you after the gameplay. All right, we're gonna start the 5-minute gameplay portion up here, showcasing the Daikyu Prime. Of course, we're not using any kind of externals. We're just showing the weapon build off by itself, and then you can kind of make your own decisions on adding externals. I'll also try not to embarrass myself too much on my bad aim. This is probably one of the most skill-based weapons in the entire game. A lot of things about it. Its trait, the arcane you're using, a lot of the mods you're using, all focus around headshots and weak point hits. And not only that, but it's a slow weapon, so you get punished for missing those weak point or headshot hits. So I would argue this is the hardest weapon to use in the entire game. No, give me a head. There we go. The butcher enemies for the Grineer, they kind of move a little bit sporadically. They're a little bit harder to get. I love the Corpus, though, because they have these big boxy heads. I'm probably going to be a little bit less talkative in this gameplay portion just because this weapon like really requires you to lock in a bit. It's not like the Tora that you can play like while you're half asleep. Or you could just like let your cat walk across your keyboard like while you're away from it. And he could play the Tora basically at like close to max efficiency. Had a pretty big string of bad shots there. When we finally get the Acolyte, this is going to be a 2 or a 3-shotter on the Acolyte. If you get real lucky, it can be a 2-shotter, but like a lot of times it'll leave him at just like a speck, so you'll have to like 3-hit him. So most of the time it'll be a 3-hitter. I think there's sentinels up, which really suck because they make the enemies face away from you. I'm going to try to kill him through pure attrition. Maybe get some blast procs around him. Where'd they go? We have the Acolyte coming and Thraxis at the same time. That's okay. Should one-shot Thraxis if you can get a good headshot. Of course, they're very slippery. Ooh, I almost just downed myself there. Malice's bubble. Face me! That's 2 headshots. That was a messy hit. Oh my goodness. It's becoming a mess there. Oh, I almost just had the mag bubble on me again there. I know we're past 5 minutes, but I want to showcase this against the Thraxis. If I can get a clean hit on them while trying to dodge Mag's bubble or Malice's bubble. Got him. Got him. There we go. Finally. I think there's one Thrax left poking his little head around here. All right. Well, that last part was kind of a mess there, but all right, welcome back to the Orbiter, guys. So let's go over how the Daikyu Prime did in its 3 10-minute runs on Steel Path Lewis Circulus. It got 781, 816, and 701 kills, putting it easily in the A tier for kill per minute potential. If you remember yesterday's video, it got B tier, so that change to longbow sharpshot with serration really made a difference there. So A tier for kill per minute potential. For single target, it's kind of complicated. So early on in Steel Path, the crazy raw damage you get for each shot is pretty much just going to one-shot everything. So it has really, really good single target early on in Steel Path. I would probably say S tier, but a lot of these big one-hit type weapons usually have a big slash proc that follows behind them. And so it helps in late game content where you might not one-shot that enemy right away. And unfortunately, the Daikyu Prime doesn't have that big slash proc that trails behind it. It just has a huge raw damage hit, a blast proc, and that's it. So I could see this kind of struggling in late game, almost like level cap content. It's really close though. I think I'm gonna give it A tier for single target, but really close to S, probably like an A+, S-, but we'll give it A tier for single target. For ease of use, this weapon is probably the hardest weapon to use in the entire game. The mods on it, the trait, the arcane, they all require weak point hits, weak point kills, headshot hits, headshot kills. And so it makes it really hard for like a beginning player or a mid-game player to do really well with this weapon, unless you've come from like a hardcore FPS background. So for ease of use, this is going to easily get D tier, D for diarrhea. Andy, go ahead and cue the diarrhea sound effect. D tier for ease of use. Hardest weapon to use in the entire game. So yeah, that's my take on it. Tell me what you guys think. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have an amazing day. All right, bye.